My Zoom's being a little weird, so
Yeah, it's
my
okay.
apologies.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
hello. I can see you now.
Can you see my video?
Yeah, I can hear with you.
Perfect. Yes. Hey everyone. Yes. Perfect.
Okay. So
How do you pronounce your name? Sorry.
mine?
Yes.
It's Con Ling.
Con Ling. Okay.
Okay, Con.
And you're Eugenius?
Yeah, you can call me Aaron. Pleasure to meet you.
Aaron.
How can I call you?
Perfect. Phil. Just Phil.
Phil. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So shall we start?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are now live streaming on Facebook. I would like to say good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of our Knowledge Fishing Talk Show. My name is Con Ling. I will be your moderator throughout this session. Today, we have two interesting guest speakers from two different countries to talk about real estate. We have Mr. Filip, who is a real estate professional from Canada, and Mr. Aaron, who is also a real estate professional from Japan. So these two guest speakers will be sharing some insightful information about real estate according to their respective country. So I would like to say stay tuned until the end to gain some knowledge on how the pandemic has impacted on real estate markets. So hello again, Mr. Filip and Mr. Aaron. Welcome and thank you guys so much for joining with us today. How are you guys doing?
Not bad. We have a lot of snow here, so I wish I was in a warmer country right now, but can't complain.
How about you, Mr. Aaron?
Yes. In Japan, in Tokyo, it's sunny outside, so it's nice weather. A little bit cold, but yeah, it's nice weather there outside. Yeah.
So since this is like more like a conversation, so I would like to start by asking what was the normal one-bedroom apartment renting price in Canada and in Japan?
Are you talking now or before the pandemic?
Before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic. So before the pandemic, approximately where I live, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from downtown Toronto, which is obviously our major metropolitan area here. You could probably find a one bedroom for around $1,300 to $1,400 Canadian a month. So translated into Japanese yen or the currency used in Cambodia, I'm not too sure, but about $1,400 Canadian a month. After the pandemic, currently now, anywhere between $1,800 and $2,000. So a market increase of about 30%.
30%. It increased.
Yeah. Increase, yes.
How about Japan?
For Japan, it's really depends on the area. I'm currently in the central of Tokyo. In central of Tokyo, we can say it depends. It really depends on the property management and also the owner of the property itself. Sometimes they give discounts or like the unit price is decreased a little bit for people to get in the property, to fill the properties, and some of the properties also increase. So basically, the one bedroom is around in Japanese yen is 60,000 to 100,000, 120,000. It really depends on the area. For example, if you go to the closer of the central Tokyo, you can get a pricer like in middle center part of Tokyo. So it's around 80,000 yen. So it's around $800 plus minus and above. But if you go to a little bit like area outside Tokyo, you can get like less than $800, for example, like $500 or $600 plus minus. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that that's actually interesting because you know, here we've seen, I mean, there just isn't enough rental units here for the amount of people, and that factors into, you know, when we're starting to discuss actual prices for houses if you want to buy one. They've also seen an even higher increase, but you know, you would think Canada, such a large country, we would have plenty of space to build and there would be plenty of units for people, but yeah, it's really a supply and demand issue. We, you know, our supply is very, very low. And again, it shouldn't be because we have so much land to develop. And our demand is extremely high. You know, we've seen record population growth, and especially in the area I'm in, like I said, about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Toronto. Especially during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people move from small apartments in Toronto where they were being, you know, charged $2,500 a month in rent for one bedroom. And sometimes they had to share that with another person to, you know, to get rid of some burden. And they were moving towards the area where I live in, like I said, about a 45-minute to an hour drive from central Toronto. And they were buying homes here. So yeah, there's been a huge move because of the pandemic from, you know, major city centers to more suburban areas. And I'm not sure how it is in Japan. You know, in Canada and in the US, our housing is completely different from the rest of the world. You know, we have major central metropolitan areas like Toronto where people live downtown in the downtown core, but more people, you know, probably an 80-20 split live in suburban areas. Is that something that you see in Japan? Does Japan have this kind of suburban outgrowth from major metropolitan areas?
Yeah, so I want to give some additional information regarding in housing in Japan. So I think you guys are already familiar how small the house in Japan, like the unit in Japan. So one bedroom in Japan, it's about the smallest one could be 10 meters square, 10 meters square. And maybe the normal one, or I usually recommend to my, my fellow clients, is about 25 meters square. So that one bedroom could fit about, 1 to 2 people for the perfect size for 1 to 2 people. But yeah, it really depends on the area. It really depends on the how close from the station the property is, and also the facility inside the plot. Sometimes they have like auto lock or security 24 hours. Some the older building, they don't really have the security system, so it really depends. Yeah, so the price can vary between the areas and also the facilities, from each properties. Yeah.
So in Japan, do they rent, or like do the people rent, live in a renting area, or they buy the places?
That's really good question. So most of the people they prefer renting, and while most of my clients are expats and foreigners, they want to do a renting. If they really like the area and also they really want to stay for longer term, they can buy a house in a certain area. And also to buy a house, you need to be at least one of the criteria to get into the screening is permanent residence in Japan. If you have a permanent residence and you want to get loan, so it will be easier for you to pass the screening for loan. But most of the clients and people that I met in here, they would likely to loan either loan or purchase in one time. But
Wow.
it's kind of risky for some people, but so they prefer to do in loan way. Yeah.
So in Japan, right? From in other country, from what I know, if you're not a citizen, you cannot buy any land or any houses, right? You can only buy the condo up from second floor or something like that. Is it the case in Japan too?
Well, in Japan, you can, well, to be honest, like you can buy properties, even though you want to buy a house, it's also possible. But if you want to pay in cash in one-time payment, that will be perfect. So it will be very fast and easy. But if you want to get the loan, then there is like kind of strict screening for about 3 months plus minus to get a loan and everything. They will check your backgrounds and also your income. If you have a credits in other purchase, for example, you're doing credits for other house or car or other stuff. So they will check it very strict here in Japan.
What about in Canada? Are foreigners allowed to buy the land?
Yes, so foreigners are allowed to buy land in Canada and housing. There has been major political conflicts with that because lots of people from China and richer people from India are buying up land and homes in Canada and just leaving them vacant. So like I explained earlier, we have a major shortage of rental units. A lot of the rental units in downtown Toronto, not a lot of them, but there's a fair percentage in Toronto, even on the West Coast in Vancouver, where these foreign buyers will come in, buy the units, and just leave them vacant. Vacant meaning that nobody's living there; they're just empty. And what these foreigners are betting on is just appreciation, right? They think that the Canadian market's going to appreciate, and that eventually they'll make money. So we have a lot of that. The government has got a little bit stricter, so they have introduced a tax on foreign buyers, but you still can buy here as a foreign buyer.
That's good. Another question I would like to ask is, are there many people buying asset during the pandemic?
So in Canada, it's been the busiest buying market ever, like that we've ever seen. Yeah, more people are buying homes than ever. More people are trying to get into homes than ever. Again, there's been a big shift here from, like I said, from the downtown cores into the suburban areas. So professionals who took the bus in Toronto to their professional jobs, their white collar jobs, decided that, especially during the pandemic when they can't go on vacations, that they would move to the suburban areas where there's more outdoor living, where it's closer to parks and beaches and everything else. So the housing prices, absolutely skyrocketed. I mean, sales prices go up about 40% a year. So in the past 2 years, our housing prices have doubled, approximately, give or take, depending where you live. So yeah, it's absolutely been crazy. The move, like I said, from white collar workers from urban areas to suburban areas has increased the prices, and yeah, it's out of control here. And more people, like I said, the more houses, more units have sold in the past 2 years than in any other year since maybe in the 60s or 70s.
What about in Japan? Are the people buying more or they buying less compared to before the pandemic and during the pandemic?
Yes. So before the pandemic, well, they have a high demand for buying house, and number of foreigners that come into in Japan are quite high at the time, but after the pandemic, the number of foreigners kind of like decreased. But a lot of people still they pretend to working from home, or they want to be more closer to with family. They want a bigger house, so there is a demand for buying house, and it's quite high. And I believe after the condition is getting better with the current situation, I believe that there will be more buyers in Japan market, since at the moment we can say that people who wants to buy a house in Japan is also kind of increasing. Yeah, and people want to stay closer with family and have their own space, and most of them they're working from home. Yeah.
And another thing I'm curious is the price, right? The price of the real estate compared to Tokyo and Osaka, or other city. Yeah, not the major one. Yeah. What are the differences?
Yeah. So if you're talking about the rent, yeah, there are a significant difference between big city like Tokyo. Osaka is also a big city, but of course Tokyo is more condensed people. So in Tokyo, for example, you want to rent, it's at least plus minus, the cheapest one will be 60,000 yen or $600 plus minus, and for one bedroom. But in Osaka, you can get it like slightly cheaper, like for $100 or 40,000 yen. Yeah, but for buying house, of course, in Tokyo, it's around 30 million yen. Yeah, 30 million yen, or 300,000 dollar. Yeah, and in other part than Tokyo, so you can get like 10 million yen or 100,000 US dollar for buying house. Well, it also depends on how big the house is. So for 3,000 US dollar, you can get around 1 LDK or 2 LDK house. Yeah, but it's also really depends. Yeah.
So where would you say is the cheapest price to buy houses or apartment in Japan? Which city?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of like way to buy a house. If you want to buy a house cheap and then you want to stay, so the cheapest I can say you can get around plus minus 15 million yen to 30 million yen. You can get in around outer part of Tokyo, but if it's inner part of Tokyo, the price is a little bit, well, it's skyrocketed, like going up, super expensive, will be 30 million yen or above, sometimes like more like 100 million yen. It really depends on how niche, or how what is the housing. Is it like needs to make a house like custom made? You can also make from scratch. It's also the price will be like around 300 million yen or 3 million US dollar plus minus. That will be, yeah, that kind of price.
What about in Canada? Where is the cheapest housing market in Canada right now?
So in Canada, the cheapest housing market is in Winnipeg in Manitoba. For a lot of people who don't know anything about Canadian geography, Manitoba is kind of in the middle of the country. and it's quite far up north. So a lot of people do not want to live there because it's, 8 months of extremely cold weather, lots of snow, and you're a little bit far away from everything. So if you're in Winnipeg, Manitoba, you're quite a distance from any other major city, and you're kind of secluded. But even there, housing prices have still gone up at a similar rate that they have here. So for example, here in closer to Toronto, where I live, for a 55 square meter condo. So we use square feet here. So I had to convert it. So about 50 to 55 square meters, you're looking at about $500,000 to purchase a condo. If you're in Winnipeg for the same kind of condo, 50 to 55 square meters, you're looking anywhere between $180,000 to $280,000. So about half. And then as you get more west and west, it gets a little bit more expensive. And to Vancouver is very similar to Toronto, that it's very expensive. But yeah, if you want to buy a house, let's say 120 square meters, around here you're looking over $1 million. In Winnipeg, about 500,000, 400 to 500,000.
Quite the difference, right? Depending on the state.
Yeah.
Do you think that the market is going to change in the future after the pandemic?
So me personally, it's difficult to say because our price increases aren't necessarily fueled by the pandemic. A little bit because developers and builders haven't been able to build because of staffing shortages, people getting sick and unable to come to work to build homes. But generally, it's a lack of supply. And the blame goes both ways. It's a big political issue here, housing, because housing has become so expensive. It's unaffordable for most middle class families, and unlike other parts of the world, like in Japan, Aaron may have obviously a better reference of this, but housing is paramount. It's one of the most important things people here in North America. We get that kind of mindset from the U.S., where the first thing you do is you graduate college and you go and you try to purchase a house. Like home ownership is the most important thing here to many people. So on one hand, the government has a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy behind building. So whether it be environmental audits, where they have to make sure that the environment isn't going to be harmed in like 7 different ways, which takes a long time here, 6 months to a year. That's slowing down building. All the other bureaucracy that it comes with, whether it be filing paperwork or applying for permits, this all takes a very long time here. We have a huge backup of that. And then on the other hand, a lot of developers, so developers being the people that buy the land and build the homes, a lot of them are not building currently because why would you build now if in a year the housing prices are going to be an extra 40%? So they're hedging their bets by holding this land and saying, okay, we'll start building next year and we'll make an extra 40%. So if you base it on how the developers are looking at it, which is a good way to base it because, they're more intertwined with government officials. The way they're looking at it, it doesn't seem like the market's going to change anytime soon. And with the supply the way it is and the demand the way it is, honestly, I don't see how it'll change. We would have to build, I think there was an estimate from our opposition party here in Canada that said we would have to build about 1.5 million houses a year to even keep up with it. And we're not even 1/3 of the way there.
What about in Japan?
Yeah. In Japan, I can say that the market will, it really depends. It really depends on this situation, the pandemic situation. If the government willing to open the borders soon, like they mentioned, like they will open the borders this February, but maybe it's still restricted to some of the people. There will be more demand, and of course the market will change. It will be busier, and also people who loves Japan, who likes to stay in Japan for long term, they will be coming here, and the price of the the properties will be increasing at that time because high in demand. And yeah, I can say like in maybe in the next year, people will starting to buy properties more and more. But yeah, that's what I my personal way of thinking. Yeah.
Does the government or do the government support people to buy property in your country, in each of your country? Do they give any support?
Yeah, for support, government support, like support like in terms of they give like funding or what kind of support?
Yeah, funding,
Or,
loan, anything. Yeah.
yeah.
To support, yeah.
So in my country, actually, it's kind of different with Japan market. In Indonesia, it's easier for people to buy and get housing certificate. And recently, like the Java Islands is already like packed and full of people, so government wants people to migrate to the island on the north called Kalimantan, where the government also wants to make a new government, like they want to transfer the government place to Kalimantan. So I can say that in Kalimantan there are a lot of land and also a lot of properties that can be interesting in the future. Also, the government will support people to move, to relocate to others island in Indonesia. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your government is changing their hub to Kalimantan soon?
In 2030, yeah, in 2030. So for about 8 years later, the government in Indonesia will move to Kalimantan. They say, yeah, approximately in 8 years from Jakarta to Kalimantan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my government did in the past too. They moved from Yangon to Naypyidaw, right? But yeah, the housing market in Naypyidaw just went down because nobody want to live there. It's like in the middle of the country, which is very hot. Yeah, so yeah, I think yeah.
In Canada, I mean, definitely the government supports home ownership. You know, it's pretty bipartisan from both our, you know, major political parties, right wing and left wing, that, you know, home ownership is extremely important. You know, the current government, I'm sure everybody knows, Justin Trudeau, doesn't really do much to support people in buying houses. He hasn't, you know, stopped, you know, blind investing or foreign investing. He put a tax on it, but again, that's not going to do much to dissuade foreign buyers from buying here, especially, you know, very wealthy ones. The other, you know, the opposition party is a little more in favor of helping people actually be able to afford a home. So they've proposed ideas where, you know, they would build 1.5 million homes a year, like I mentioned earlier. But generally, yes, from any way you look at it, it's a pretty bipartisan issue that the government really does want people to own homes, and again, it's very, very important here in North America, especially because a lot of people have their entire retirement basically saved up in their home. So what they'll do is they'll take a 25-year mortgage, they'll pay that mortgage. Saving here is very difficult. A lot of employers don't offer 401ks or matching to your RRSPs. So a lot of, especially middle class and working class people who work, blue collar jobs, plumbers, electricians, a lot of their money is tied up in their home. And it's worked very well, especially for people right now who are retiring and selling their homes. If you bought a home 20 years ago, you're probably paying around $150,000-$200,000 for that same home right now. Probably worth about 1.2 to 1.3 million. So they've made about $1 million in 20 years, and I mean, you need to do very well in the market, the general market, to get that kind of return on investment. So a lot of our retirement savings are tied up in real estate here, and hence why it's so important for the government, and hence why both major parties here support it.
So do you guys own property?
I'll go first, I guess. Yeah, I actually was able to just purchase something this past about 5 months ago. So yeah, I was able to buy something. It's very stressful, as I'm sure you guys could imagine, paying so much. So basically, my about 55 square meter apartment, because that's what I bought. I bought an apartment. I paid about $400,000 Canadian. So into yen, I'm guessing that's around 40 million yen. So I don't plan to live in it. Basically, it's an investment property for me. I plan to rent it out, and maybe buy another one next year. Hopefully, in the next 10 years, I'll have a portfolio of maybe 10 to 20 properties. That's kind of my long-term goal.
From my side, for myself, I don't own a property, but my family does, and we rent it out to other family who is in Indonesia. So we start renting from last 2 years ago, since the pandemic began, and we have properties for around 150 meter square that we're renting, and it costs for 1 year, it's about $4,000. Yeah, it's quite that's a price.
That's nice and cheap. Maybe I should move to Indonesia.
Yeah, $4,000. Yeah, for a whole year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising.
Is it in Jakarta or other parts
Yes,
of the country?
it's next city. It's Jakarta. It's called Tangerang, where I live. My family lived, but my family already moved to other city in Sumatra Island, closer to Malaysia and Singapore. Yeah.
So in Indonesia, I know you work in Japan primarily, but Indonesia, I know in Japan most people primarily live in apartment buildings and condos. Is that correct?
That's
so
correct.
In Indonesia, is it similar, or is there more homes, actual detached homes?
Yeah, more people living in detached home, especially for those who want to live closer to families. But for those people who is working, for example, their family in Jakarta, but they have work in Sumatra or Kalimantan, so they prefer to rent apartments or mansion, or vice versa. Like people outside from Jakarta, they want to come to Jakarta for working, they will rent mansion or property or apartments. Yeah. So mostly people living in home in Indonesia, like detached house. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
What about in Bali? Is it more expensive in
Bali.
Bali than Jakarta?
In Bali, wow, that's interesting. So in Bali, in terms of homes, yeah, it's approximately not that well. If it's in tourism side, it will be much more expensive. But mostly people who wants to make well, from outside Bali, they want to make like resort or hotels or maybe like bungalow or guest house. It's more popular uh, rather than home. But of course, for native people in Bali, they want to build their home there for living. But yeah, the price is more expensive in I can say in Jakarta rather than in Bali. Yeah.
So, do you guys have any question to ask each other?
I mean, no, not really any questions. I just, on YouTube, I always watch videos of Japan, and they talk about Japanese real estate and everything. I find it really cool. I mean, I'd love to visit Japan one day. I find it to be a super interesting country, right? I mean, there's so many people here in Canada who just love, I mean, everything Japanese, whether it be anime or all the food and everything. So it'd be very cool. But I'm very, very tall, so I feel like I wouldn't fit in anything in Japan. Yeah, so
In Japan it's really interesting regarding of the, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the size of the Japanese house, as a foreigners I can say it's kind of tiny.
yeah,
Well, you can get the house for, well, or apartments for about 10 meters square, and I did some house tour for that unit, and I was surprisingly shocked. But oh, this is super tiny, and they have a loft. Loft means like you get a ladder going up to the like a small space on the top, so you can have your bed there, and you can put your other stuff in first floor. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. And Mike, well, I also interested for um, you know, going to Canada to visit like a log house, for example, like that, where
uh,
you can also have your not fully working, but also you have balanced life. What
yeah,
I hear from my friends and my people who already live in Canada, they say like it's really balanced and it's really nice, where you can go to the park, for example, for refreshing. You can see the goose or
yeah.
in the lake. Yeah, it's very like, wow, that's one of my dream to live close by the nature. Something
Yeah,
like that. It's
yeah.
really
Well,
nice.
I mean, here you're very close to all of that. One thing I really do like about, especially Canada, North America in general, is there's so much space, so
Yeah.
much space. Everybody here, I mean, we all drive massive cars, massive vehicles, and there's so much room everywhere. You can go anywhere. There's traffic. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. I'm guessing it's not like Tokyo traffic where you can spend
Yeah.
an hour getting across. But yeah, it's definitely nice. The one thing I'll always complain about is cold. I hate the cold. It's like yesterday, I had to shovel 20, 30 centimeters of snow,
Wow.
and it took hours to do it. It's
Wow.
very, very annoying. I mean,
Great.
coming from a warm country, especially, it's not like I came, but if you guys came to Canada, it'd be a shock for you. So actually, a funny thing in real estate that's going on here is a lot of Canadians are buying homes in the U.S. Especially in Florida, in more southern states, because especially when people retire. A lot of Canadians spend 6 months in Canada, so the nice warm season, and then they go to Florida or Georgia or South Carolina for 6 months, where it's a little bit warmer.
I want to ask about in Japan, like if some of the apartments, like high-rise mansions, we have like floor heating in the room or in the living room. How about in Canada? Well, it must be colder there. Yeah. Do they have also floor heating flooring system?
So in all my time, I've seen 2 homes have floor heating. I've never seen an apartment here in Canada have floor heating, actually, which we probably should have it, right? I mean, it is cold, very cold here, 6 months of the year. But no, it's not a very popular thing here, actually, to have floor heating. Again, we in Canada and in the US, we have large homes comparatively to Japan. Like I said, the average home here is probably around 150 square meters. So it's quite large, right? And everything is expensive. So having to put in the heated floors everywhere in that entire space, electricity is also quite expensive here too. To use the electricity and stuff, it would be a hassle. But definitely, I would say upper income homes, like people, who are making $200,000-$300,000 a year, they can definitely afford something like that. But for the general public, I would say it's very uncommon. Sometimes it is in one room, so a lot of people will have heated floors in their kitchen, because whether they're standing there making food, they want to have nice warm feet, or in their living room. But it's very uncommon in bedrooms. Because again, a lot of bedrooms here are carpeted, so the carpet does give you a little bit of warmth. I'm not sure if that's a big thing in Japan at all, if it's very popular for it to be carpeted or not.
Yeah, in Japan, like more quite similar. Like mostly the floor heating will be on corridor or guest room or living room, and of course in the kitchen. So they more specify in those areas, that common area, like people can meet up and also, for example, make some food in the kitchen or in the living room. They want to have some chat. Yeah, they do have like floor heating. That's for the high-rise mansion or apartments. But for the more traditional house, they have like in the middle of the tatami room, they have like kettle or a pot, and they burn some of the like wood, and they use a kettle and they pour some tea inside the kettle, so to make the room warm, and also they can serve the tea to the guests coming to their home. It's really traditional and unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I would love to visit both Japan and Indonesia and Cambodia one day.
For me as well, I would love to travel to Canada.
Just don't come when it's winter. I'm telling you, don't do it.
In Japan is when you want to visit Japan, the high season will be in spring. So soon will be starting from March back to April, where all the sakura, the flowers, the sakura blossom,
very cool.
and cherry blossom will be blooming. Then that's the high season in Japan. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Most people come here, July, August, I would say.
July, August.
Because it does get warm. So here's the thing with Canada: it gets very, very warm and very, very cold. So we have both extremes. In the summer it could be 35 degrees and extremely humid, and in the winter it could be minus 25 degrees, like it was a few days ago, and bitter cold. So we have both extremes of temperature.
Wow. Yeah. So if I want to visit Canada, maybe on middle of year, so July or
Yeah,
August.
July or August. That's definitely what I would recommend.
Amazing. Yeah.
So one last question I want to ask. Can you guys give us your thoughts on foreigner owning a property in Japan or in Canada or in Indonesia?
Yeah, for my side, like owning a property is well, it's an investment, I can say, whether in Japan or in Indonesia. If you like living in Japan, or you want to um, have additional income, for example, it's a good investment. And I can say real estate never lies, and it's always a good investment. And it really, the thing that really matters is the place. It really matters. You need to choose a place that people like because of easy access, like in the middle of town, or they have something like attraction around or very convenience area. Also in Indonesia as well. Yeah, that's my thought. It's really nice to put as an investment.
Yeah. When it comes to whether I personally think that a foreigner should be able to buy, I would say maybe. You know, I personally do not want Chinese millionaires and billionaires buying properties in Canada at all. And you know, I'm with the vast majority of Canadians who think the same. You know, I don't want, you know, foreign conglomerates, because again, when you're going through, especially if you're going through China, you never know who's buying that, if it's, you know, if there's in some way state sponsored. So the last thing you want is, you know, a state sponsored company or a person working on behalf of a company owning land or property here in Canada. And again, that's the vast majority of Canadians would agree with that. Generally speaking, it really depends, right? I mean, would I mind if someone from Cambodia or from Japan owned property if they owned a house? You know, not really. To me, it's more, you know, typically people buying homes in Canada because they are so expensive. They're very wealthy, right? And if you're wealthy in a country like China, again, I'm using China as an example because, you know, the government isn't necessarily a democratic government. You don't know by what means that those funds were given. And again, this is a very, very popular opinion here in Canada. So again, it really depends on where. If it's in an authoritarian state like China, no. But if it's, you know, Japan, I think most Canadians would support them owning a property here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very dependent. Like I said, it's very dependent on where and where they get those funds and by what means they're buying the property here. But yeah, generally speaking, I would say most Canadians don't want foreign buyers, especially in this market, because they already have to compete against other Canadians. If they have to compete against foreign buyers now too, then it makes it even harder, right? If it was a balanced market, I think, you know, Canadians would have less of a problem with it. But in the current state of affairs, definitely, you know, the vast majority of Canadians, I would say, do not want foreigners buying properties at this moment, especially.
Anything else you would like to ask each other?
I mean, I'm not really. I think it's been a great conversation. It's really interesting again to learn about Japan, because it's a country I have been very, very interested in. You know, it's a very interesting country. It's very different from the rest of Asia, you know. So it's a very, very interesting country that, again, that I would love to visit one day. But I think all the questions I needed to ask are asked.
Finally, when you visit Japan, let me know.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, when I go to Canada, I will definitely would love yeah, chat you.
Yeah, if you ever visit Canada, let me know. We'll go do some Canadian things. We'll go make a snowman or play some hockey
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Amazing. Sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
All right. So our time's up. I would like to thank both of you for joining and sharing your extensive knowledge on real estate and sharing your precious time with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's a
thank you.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.